Hey everybody, it's Carl here at Rare Candy, and today I am so excited to bring you this 2019 Richmond, Virginia Regional Meta Discussion video. I'm joined by three awesome guests here, guys that have a lot of experience in the game, as you'll see when I go through some of these accomplishments. And I'm particularly excited because this is basically a whole new format. We haven't gotten an expanded event in about 6 months by the time the regional actually is getting ready to start next Saturday. And it's kind of unexplored and it's kind of unknown. And I have these three guests here today to hopefully shed some light on what to expect. What should we be playing? What should we be testing? How's the event going to go? Things of that nature. So I'm going to introduce them all individually here to you. The first one, someone who doesn't really need much of an introduction. He taught me everything I know about the game. His name's Phinnegan Lynch. He's the owner of Cutter Tap. Great content creation website. They're adding writers. They do coaching. Just an excellent place to go to learn about the game if you're new or if you're seasoned, especially. He got 32nd at the most recent Knoxville Regionals last weekend, 32nd at NAIC this year, and he won 2015 Utah Regionals, which is obviously worth noting. Also got 11th at Santa Clara. So we have Finn. Like I said, we have Justin Lambert, who is a player from Florida. He got top 8 at Worlds as a senior in 2017. Obviously a huge accomplishment there. Followed it up with top 64 at Daytona Regionals last season and started the season strong this year with the top 64 at Atlantic City. So super excited to have Justin on here, get him some exposure a little bit. And lastly, we have Carter Barsh, arguably the Rookie of the Year, I'd say. If I'm if I'm voting on it, Carter has just started playing really recently, from what I remember. He's a member and writer for Team Cutter Tap, so obviously a big time position there in the game. Also 18th at Santa Clara Regionals this year, 11th at Daytona, 28th at Denver. Pretty consistent placements in all the events that he's played at since starting the game. So just put out his most recent his first article on Cutter Tap. So yeah, kind of a Cutter Tap plug in a sense, but it's a great website. It's a great place to go to learn more about the game. All right, great guys, cool. I mean, I have a lot of questions for you. Obviously, there's a lot that goes into Expanded. I'm personally lost on the format. I really don't play a lot of Expanded. I know you California guys love your Expanded. Justin, I know you've had some success in Expanded. So I'm really excited to kind of dig into this format and talk to you a little bit and see where your heads are at. Maybe learn something myself, and at the very least, kind of show everybody out there, what some top level players are thinking, get a little piece of their insight there. So obviously Expanded, we haven't had a tournament in about 6 months. I think second week in May was the last time we had an Expanded tournament. It was Hartford Regionals. Since then, no Expanded, and 2 sets have come out, right? 2 sets have come out. So
3 if you want to count Shining Legends.
Oh, okay.
Or not Shining Legends, Hidden Fates.
Yeah. Okay, 2.5. Love it. So kind of what I wanted to do is go around and just get your thoughts on the format overall, maybe neat little things that you found, maybe big overarching ideas to the whole format. I want to start with Carter. Carter, just give me your thoughts on Expanded overall, if you could.
Well, it is a very, very fast format. You'll find that a lot of games are decided usually on the first or second turn, and one player will just have a clear advantage after their first or second turn. You can really tell what direction the game's going to take after those first few turns.
Okay, that's kind of interesting. I feel like that's kind of a polarizing way to think about the format. Would you say that you like that?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I mean, if you have a strong and consistent deck and you want to do the same thing every game, then there's a lot of options out there for you.
Cool. Okay. Justin, how about you? Thoughts on the format from playing it? I know you're not going to Richmond, but I still want to hear whatever you have to think about how Expanded is shaping up to look next weekend.
Yeah, of course. So I think I do agree with Carter that the format's extremely fast-paced. Your decks it's going to do its game plan on turn 1 and go from there. And I think that's where good players will shine in terms of their deck building skills to make their deck as consistent as possible to hit the combos that they need. And but I also think it offers a gateway for control decks to come into the format. There's a lot of cards in Expanded that can lock your hand on early turns, so you'll see decks like that for sure. It's going to be a crazy few weekends following the updated ban list. And I don't know, it's going to be crazy. But you're going to have some fast-paced decks. You're going to have your control decks. But overall, I think it's going to be a very interesting format.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the card pool itself. It's so massive, right? What is it, like 30 something sets? 30,
Yeah.
37 sets, maybe some crazy number. It just allows for so much, and I think that I'm not a big fan of expanded, but I sometimes wonder like what's still unexplored when your card pool is that big, and then things get supplemented by like future releases and things like that. Justin, would you say you're a fan of the format from playing it?
I'd say so, yeah.
Interesting. Okay, Finn, how about you? What are your thoughts on expanded overall? I know you probably have plenty.
It's a silly format. Lots of crazy stuff, lots of winning and losing, like before your second turn even happens. Me and Carter were playing last night, and I think there was like 5 games, between me and him where we just like scooped after our first or second turn. So, that's just kind of the format. It's really bad. It's a really gross format, but it's also kind of beautiful at the same time because deck builders can really have a lot of material to work with. They can show their ability in that way, and there's also a lot of skill involved in the games that don't just end on the first or the second turn. So it's terrible and it's great at the same time. It's very chaotic.
Awesome. Would you say you're a fan of it?
Oh man, I used to be a huge fan of it, and lately I'm not sure. I kind of just don't think it should exist anymore, but like from a purely fun perspective, like just looking at Pokemon for having fun, not for winning or anything, yeah, it's great.
It's the only way you can still play Zoroark.
Oh, I know. I tried that recently, and it was interesting to say the least.
Yeah.
So whenever we have something like this happen, where like a format is set to debut, and there's been a layoff between events, usually after the off season, the time between the last regional and the first regional of the next year, we see pretty much every deck get touted as filthy, broken, busted on all these online groups, these article websites, YouTube channels, things like that. Every deck usually has their time in the sun for a day or two of being the most filthy, busted, broken, insane deck that we can possibly play. And if you're not running this deck, then what are you even doing, right? What I want to know from each of you is, what deck would you not play at regionals next weekend that is picking up steam online, that is somewhat popular, that is talked about? And I'm going to start this one with Justin.
Okay, so the top deck that I wouldn't be playing is the Mewtwo Vileplume deck that uses the Executor Execute or Rowlet to evolve it on the first turn. It took up a lot of hype after it like topped the League Cup locally by me, and I wasn't at that cup, so I didn't get to see the deck in action. But after watching my friends play it, I can definitely tell that it's extremely strong. Just being able to item lock early and then lock with different Pokemon like Jolteon or Altaria. Like we've seen that before with Vileplume. Orlando Regionals a few years ago, we saw that Vileplume, like Jolteon Glaceon deck do well. So I think this is just another way of doing that. And I wouldn't play it, but I think it's definitely going to be there. People will be playing it.
Interesting. Okay, you wouldn't play it for what reason? Do you find it consistent? Do you find it like hit or miss?
I find the deck to be. I feel like it has issues with different control decks. Like being heavily special energy reliant can be an issue. I also think certain decks can definitely still beat it. Like Carter said, the format is extremely fast paced, so I don't know how good Vileplume will be because most decks can run through almost all 60 cards on the first turn.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've played hands with different decks like Turbozard or Rayquaza, Ho-Oh, and I'm down to 10, 15 cards in my deck on turn 1. So I feel like Vileplume can be a slightly too slow, but if those fast-paced decks find, they hit a wall, then Vileplume will be able to shut them down for a majority of the game.
Cool. Awesome. Finn, what is the deck you would not play that you've seen trending, sounds popular, sounds like it might be a decent chunk of the metagame next weekend?
Trevenant. Oh my god. Anything but Trevenant.
Trevenant.
But also Mewtwo Vileplume. I agree with Justin. I just don't like those decks. I think they're very lacking in skill, and they're not incredibly consistent, and they're boring. It's like, you're already going to an expanded regionals. Why are you going to torture yourself the whole time? Like, have fun. That's what the format's for. Why would you do that?
Okay, so that's 2 for Mewtwo Vileplume. Carter, how about you? Deck you would not play that is sounding popular and kind of picking up some steam in different circles online.
Um, I agree with both of them that Mewtwo Vileplume isn't as hot as people are making it out to be. It was one of the first decks I started testing when I got into Expanded, just for playtesting for the upcoming tournaments recently, and it sounds really cool on paper, but decks like Turbo Dark, or Archies, even you give them one turn and then you just lose because they do all that they need to do on that first turn. But in addition to that, I think that the Mega Mewtwo, or not Mega Guardy Mewtwo and Mew is also really overrated. I think that deck's really inconsistent.
Yeah, you aren't the first person that I've heard have that kind of opinion on that deck. And I know it's been kind of making the rounds online. I see it a lot on Twitter. And from what I've heard, I don't really play on the expanded ladder, but from what I've heard on the expanded ladder, it's the most wildly popular deck by a wide margin. One in every 3 or 4 matches is against that deck. So, okay, interesting. So
yeah, I also think if you just play one copy of Karen and you use it against them, they're just gonna lose. The deck can't come back after a single Karen because they have so many attackers that are stage 2s and stage 1s, and they usually blow through all their battle compressors on the first turn. They're just gonna get shut out by it.
Interesting. Yeah, I saw some Karen buzz too, which actually does seem pretty good. Awesome. Okay, so that gives me a lot to work with as far as what not to start testing. So we'll start with Finn. Decks that you're high on. Decks that you've played with a little bit, and you're okay, there might be something to this.
Zorogarb. That's not a surprise. Well, at least it shouldn't be. I love Zorogarb. I always have. I played it for every expanded regionals last year, and now that I can trash launch a Mewtwo for double damage, I feel even more hyped about it. And Mewtwo's in I don't know, half the decks out there, or their control decks, and Zorogarb beats Zoro Control, so I'm seeing little reason to not play it unless my Blastoise matchup is bad, and Carter has a sick tech for that matchup anyway, so yeah, I'm definitely high on Zorogarb, you could say, and I guess that's it. That's all I'm really interested in, to be honest.
Wow, that's actually somewhat surprising knowing you. I know you from how long I've known you, for 2 years now. It seems like you've always had one lock, kind of I'm playing this, but then also, Carl, here's something you could try as well if you're bored.
Yeah. Well, I definitely have some of those, but I'm just not really what I did with the last tournament was I was I could just test Blounds every single day and know it inside out, or I could do that thing I always do where I play some silly decks and end up on one. So I'm just you know what, I got that 32 with Blounds. I'm just gonna do it with Zorogarb this time in expanded.
Awesome, man. Well, I can't wait to see it. Carter, how about you? I'd love to hear about what your thoughts are regarding what you would play and maybe a cute tech or two. You gave us Karen.
Yeah, I think Karen's a really good tech because I think Night March is super underrated right now. I feel like it's really good against both of the super aggressive decks like Archies and Turbo Dark, but those are also 2 decks that I find myself really enjoying right now because you can just have a super strong turn 1, and then it's how do you even lose from that point?
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Okay, Justin, where are you at as far as what? I know you're not going, but if you were going, what would you play? What would you consider? Yeah.
I think 100% I'd be playing Archies. I've played the deck for 2 of the past expanded regionals I've been to, and it's been the most consistent deck. I think that just the 4 of every single trainer in the deck, just you pretty much never whiff it. In my testing games, I've whiffed it maybe 2 or 3 times total, and just the fact that with new cards like Espeon Deoxys and Naganadel GX, the one.
Oh yeah, I really like the Naganadel.
Just being able to sweep an entire Evolution's board on the first turn of the game and get rid of everything that they need is super good. A lot of my friends that have been playing the deck have found themselves struggling to hit the turn 1 combos, but I think it's more or less you have to go all in, build your deck so it absolutely hits it. For example, last year in Dallas when we played Archie Stoys, a large group of friends of mine, we all played Archie Whales with a lab, so we could get the 8 energy combo, and the deck was built to get it. We had triple Shaman, 4 of every card. So I feel if you build your deck like that and you're able to just speed through and basically just knock out anything that comes to the active. That's definitely what I'd be playing.
Awesome. Yeah, I've been playing a lot of Archies too. When helping friends prepare, like just test games on Skype and stuff like that. And I don't think I've ever played a better deck. Honestly, like it's just disgusting. What the things you could outfit it with, things you could do with it, the speed at which it operates most of the time. It feels like it shouldn't be as consistent as it is, and it actually is.
Yeah, and there's just so many different techs that you can play. Like I was exploring just different cards, and some of them that I found were I'm currently testing them right now, but most of them have been super good. There's just so many cards in Expanded that you never really know what could work well.
Yeah, I mean, and the metagame shifts, and then suddenly this one thing that nobody really has ever read before is actually somewhat relevant now, and that's kind of the draw of Expanded for me. I feel like Standard is just, by the end of it, like when we're here where we are right now, Standard is more or less like solved, and I feel like it's just Expanded will never reach that point. And that's kind of a draw. It is nice playing in a solved defined metagame, but sometimes you want to just make things go crazy, and that's why we have Expanded, right?
Yeah.
So, Justin, I know that we had a conversation before we got on the call about a potential tier list. I'd love to hear your tier list, and then maybe follow it up with Carter and Finn about what they think about yours, where they'd place their own. So go ahead and tell us about that tier list that you have.
Okay, so I had a tier 1. I had 5 total decks. A 6 was a possible inclusion. I had Archistois, as I just said. Mewtwo Plume I have on there only because of the fact that so many people are playing it. Okay. I think it has good matchups around the board if you're able to set up, but I don't really like its control matchups. I have Sable Garb on there. I think a lot of top players are going to be playing that. Just you're able to control the board state. You're able to lock your opponent out of their hand. It can play for long games. I have Turbo Dark. It's another one of those fast-paced decks that can just literally just speed through their entire cards, all of their cards, and they don't really they're prone to lock, but at the same time they can just flood the board of energies. So I don't know, it's just consistent. And then I have Zoroark. That deck will never die for some reason. It's Zoroark, it's Garbodor. The fact that now with Reset Stamp in the format, you're able to Garb, Reset Stamp, Floatstone, and then Colress for a bunch of cards, and just basically blow up your opponent's board. Tier 2, I have Zoro Control. I think that's another deck that's going to be very popular, just being able to control the board. Toad Zoroark, being able to lock your opponent and draw cards is always good, so I've seen that deck explored a lot. Mega Mewtwo, Mega Guardy, as Carter mentioned. So many people are on that deck. I don't really understand why, but it's just hit for a bunch of damage, spread a bunch of damage, and you have access to max potions, so I think that's why a lot of people like it. Pikarom, that's another turbo deck. Just blow up your opponent's board as fast as possible. Turbo Ray, Ho-Oh. I know a lot of people that actually do like that deck still. I think it beats control decks just because of the fact that you can, again, go through your entire deck, flood the board of energies, and a lot of control decks can have a hard time getting at that. And then the last one for tier 2 is I have Hitmonchan, only because it plays 4 Wobbuffets. So you lock all these turbo decks if you open it, and it can be really, really hard for them to combat the turn 1 lock. And then I have 5 rogue decks, which are Turbo Zard, another one of those turbo decks, but I don't really know how good its matchups are. Earlier today, Alex Szymanski released an article on Primal Groudon Wob, and that got me thinking a lot. So I feel like that deck could be played by people that actually own 4 tropical beaches. But that's definitely going to be a little bit harder for them to play. Mewtwo Honchkrow Lock was one of those decks. I was actually testing this last night. I didn't really like it very much, but I feel like a lot of players will be able to make the deck consistent enough to be able to lock your opponent's hand as fast as possible. Vespiquen Flareon. That deck is always good in any format. It's a 1-prizer that can swing for a ton of damage, but with the hype of Karen, I don't know how good it's going to be. Night March. The format is so undefined right now that decks like Night March will always shine like that. That's why Team TDG played it to that one regional where nobody really knew what to expect, so Night March was able to just come in and take the whole event. And then the last deck I had was Buzzgarb Shrine, or Buzzgarb Power Plant, because it just has an even matchup spread.
Wow. That's a really comprehensive tier list, and that's so many decks, and it's just like a fifth of Expanded, right? Like, not even, maybe less than that. Carter, do you have any thoughts on that whole tier list that Justin supplied us, and maybe any places where you agree or disagree?
That was a lot of decks.
Yeah. Maybe
That was a
you
lot.
could just pick one.
I felt like his tier 1 was pretty defined. For me, I'd probably put Sableye, Zoro Control, Zoro Garb, Archie's, and Turbo Dark in tier 1 for me, at least, followed by like everything else, because you should always be playing a tier 1 deck.
Right, yeah, of course. Finn, any last thoughts on tier list? Maybe brief overview of your own personal one if you have one, or a deck that maybe is going to be better than anticipated?
Yeah, I kind of like the way that Carter does it. It's like you got a tier 1 and then you got not tier 1, and that's all you really care about. So tier 1, I'm going to say is Night March, Turbo Dark, Zoro Garb. I think, honestly, I'm not sure about Mewtwo Mega Guardy.
Mm-hmm.
I could go either way with that one. And I'm definitely forgetting some of the other ones that Justin mentioned, but I think Zoro Control is tier 2. I'm not sure about Sableye. I feel like that also might be tier 2. I think a lot of people are hyping these control decks like up higher than they should. But yeah, the ones that really stand out to me are Night March, Zoro Garb, and Turbo Dark, personally.
I kind of want to talk really briefly about Sableye Garb, because that's a deck that I see be like the most polarizing choice. And the people who are fans of it are like really big time fans of it, and they think that there's no better deck. Or people think it's like low tier 2, tier 3. So Finn, do you have any thoughts about Sable Garb?
Yeah, well, I think it definitely has a lot of skill involved with playing it, and if you play it perfectly, I definitely think you'll day 2. My personal problem with it is how frail your Sableyes are, and they just keep dying over and over. You got 70 HP, and you just get 2 items back. So, like, I don't know. I just don't like how fragile it feels. I feel like you can lose just because of that. Like, maybe you prize 2 Sableyes or, whatever goes wrong. But, yeah, it's definitely a deck where if you play it really well, you can do very well. And I think that's why the fans of it like it so much, is because they feel like they have so much control. Because they know how to play it.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Justin? Any thoughts on Sableye Garb?
I agree 100% with Finn. If you play it properly, you should find yourself in day 2. But I feel like a lot of players, they're not going to pick it up because they think it's extremely skill-based, which it is. But, I mean, even myself, I'm not a huge fan of control decks, but I feel like I'm able to play it pretty well. But I don't feel that I'm confident enough to play it for an expanded regional.
Cool. How about you, Carter?
Yeah, I think Sableye is really good. I'd probably rather play Zoro Control, but like they both have the same like end game idea where you just like get them to no cards and then chip them. And with Sableye, you're using Junk Hunt, and then with Zoroark, you're using a Ranguru. But I just like saying trade, so
cool.
2 in the same.
Yeah.
Both of these decks just lose to Turbo Dark, though, right? Like, am I wrong? I feel like you just flood your board with Darks, and then it's just like, what are you going to do?
I haven't tested it all against Zoro Control, but I've been beating Sableye like pretty consistently with Turbo Dark.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, I played against a lot of Dark online. Somebody that I was helping get ready for the event was playing Dark, and I was having a very hard time against it with control decks.
Yeah.
So
that's the main reason why I'm not certain you can call Sableye or Zoro Control tier 1, is just because I feel like Turbo Dark is going to be pretty big, and if you're going to take an L to that, it's like, your chances of winning are not amazing if you're going to take an L to one of the most popular decks.
Yeah.
You need to have a specific game plan for Turbo Dark. It probably involves like some amount of Wobbuffets.
I mean, if you can tech in a Palkia and get 5 energy on it, you're good.
Yeah, that would be pretty solid.
Man, there's just so much that goes into it. It's just outrageous. So we've talked a little bit about pretty much everything that you're going to expect. The neat thing was the Buzzguard power plant that Justin suggested a little while ago. What I want to know is are there any under the radar decks that you guys think deserve more exploring? Maybe by people who aren't going to the event, that are just testing around. Maybe a deck that could show up next weekend and do really well. whether that's in day one or carry that into day two. I'll start with Finn. That sounds interesting.
I usually have the spice. I usually bring it. I've got it usually, but I'm just, like I said, I'm just focusing on the tier 1 right now, so I don't really have it.
Is there a card you think is worth, like a singular card that you think is worth exploring and expanded that you don't kind of see used often?
I think there's a lot more room to explore Mewtwo. Like, people are just looking at Plume and Mega Guardy, but I'm like, why aren't you guys just looking at Welder and expanded, or one of the 90 pages of GXs and EXs that are on the Pokemon site? Like, there's so many different forms of energy acceleration and expand. There's so many different kinds of locks. There's so many primals and megas that just have crazy attacks that you can use with Mewtwo. I feel like there's tons of room for exploration with Mewtwo, and I've got like 3 variants that people aren't even talking about that I just posted about on my site.
Yeah.
I don't have a list of them, but
Okay, nice
I guess I'm sorry, I do have one. I forgot about this until now, but do you remember Milotic Marshadow GX Timeless? Does anybody remember that deck?
Yeah.
So you just do that with Mewtwo now. That's the concept, pretty much.
That's pretty tight. Okay. How about you, Carter?
There's probably like a good like aggro lock deck, like Sceptile and Vileplumes and stuff.
Aggro. Oh boy.
I played against that at a challenge 2 weeks ago, actually.
Yeah, the League Cup I was at, I played Archie's. I got top 4 with, was won by aggro Vileplume.
Oh my god.
The Sceptile GX, and I was the only person who lost to in that tournament, but the deck looked really solid, and I think if like people like aren't teched for like Vileplume, Burning Shadows, then like Turbo Dark will just like crumble to it, and if you can beat Turbo Dark, I think you can succeed in this format.
Awesome. Justin, how about you? Any unexplored cards or cards you think there could be something to them with some more testing or refining?
I think that Primal Groudon is very good. I don't know how many players will be able to play it just because of the fact that you need 4 beaches, but I do think that it's just way too good. Like, you have access to blocking your opponent's abilities in a format of turbo decks. That's always been good. And you have the Ancient Trait that doesn't let supporters or items discard your energies, so control decks can be you can definitely win the matchup. You have cards like Regirock that can swing prize trades. So I feel like that deck definitely should be explored. There's a lot of different cards you could grab now with like different item cards that have been released that you can grab with Karina. The deck just feels pretty consistent, but I don't know how crazy you'll see it just because it's very expensive to play.
Yeah. Awesome. That's actually a really cool suggestion. So, last thing I want to talk about is Cosmic Eclipse. Obviously, we had pre-releases last weekend. We have pre-releases this weekend. I want to throw in a little bit of standard information, too, for those who are watching who maybe aren't as well-versed in Expanded or maybe newer to the game. What I want to know is, how do you guys think Cosmic Eclipse will impact the Standard and the Expanded metas? From what you've read or maybe from what you've tested, since we're kind of like in the preliminary stages here of the set release. So I'll start with Carter.
Pidgey's too good. It's just like you get Boelba and Bryson, man, and like I haven't lost any games with it against like everything I've played against. It's too good. Like you can mill 6 cards in a turn. That's insane.
That's wild.
As far as it'll affect Expanded, there's a lot of cards. I think the first thing I'd want to test is Guzma and Hala tag team with Primal Groudon. I think that sounds cool. Just because I also really like Groudon too.
Yeah, nice. That lets you search Special Energy, Stadium, and
a tool card.
And a tool. Wow. Yeah.
So you can just Beach, Strong Energy, Focus Sash, or Bent Spoon, and then like Beach for 4.
Wow. Yeah, it seems pretty good. Okay. Geez. Okay. How about you, Justin? How do you think the set will impact both metas?
I think it's going to be very good in terms of as a refresher. Like I love going to League Cups because I obviously live in Florida and we have a plethora of League Cups every single quarter. And so like playing the same decks, seeing the same decks over and over for the past, month or two since Worlds, it's just been, I don't know. I feel like the set's going to be refreshing. We're going to start to see new cards, new decks. I really like Palkia, Dialga Arceus. I think that card's really good. I think it's going to change how a lot of decks are built. Like to be able to counteract having, being able to take an extra prize card on a 3-prizer is pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
In combination with Keldeo GX and Chaotic Swell, people are going to have to figure out ways to get around it, maybe add in different 1-prizers. I think that's something good. I agree with Carter. Pidgey is insane. I've personally started testing it, and I also haven't lost a game with it. So the deck is definitely it's way too good. For Expanded, I agree that Guzman Hall is nuts, especially in Zorgar. Being able to, thank God they banned Reset Stamp. Thank God they banned Reset Stamp, because the fact that you can trade 3 or 4 times in a turn, and then Guzman Hall for DC, and if you're playing the parallel build, you can go parallel Floatstone, and then Reset Stamp them in the same turn. I'm glad that combo's gone. But I think Guzman Hall is very good in combination with Egg. I also think Roxy is a very good card. In Expanded, trading 4 times and then Roxying for 6 with double execute propagation is also pretty good. I don't know, just being able to draw through your deck is obviously always good.
There's so many. I'm so glad I asked this question. There's so much degeneracy that's going to ensue. Finn, do you have any thoughts about the set? Things you're excited about testing? How things might change?
Yeah. So I think the most significant part is that Mewtwo just gets pushed out of the format hard, because Mimikyu, Shrine, and then you're just like, oh, okay, I can't play Pokemon if you're playing Mewtwo against Malamar. So I think that's pretty crazy, because that's been the most dominant deck in Standard in a long time, Worlds and the first 2 regionals and the one in Europe, I think. So that's crazy that that's just going to get knocked off its throne. Bellaby and Bryson, man, I think that's what it's called. Yeah, definitely insane. I've been coaching in that format against Pidgeotto, which, by the way, is not very fun, but he's been bodying me over and over. I got 1 game because he misplayed, and so, yeah, that deck's just nuts. But Malamar puts up a good fight with that new Baby Blonde, because you just spread 40 over and over, and then maybe you play double recycle now in case they fob a 1. But, yeah, I think those are just the 2 best decks. And then I think Zekrom and Reshiram has a lot of potential. Arceus has a lot of potential. But Pika and Mewtwo don't look like they're going to stay around for much longer, in my opinion.
Gotcha. Wow. It's a set that I'm really excited about, because I feel like 1-prizers might have some viability again with some of the tools they have, with some of the cute 1-prizers that we're getting that are coming out. I'm personally excited to revive Vikavolt. I don't know how viable it's going to be, but having a card like what's her name? Her name is Rosa. Having a card like Rosa is pretty cool.
That card.
Oh god, I can't wait to do everything with Rosa. Just play it in every deck possible. So yeah, I mean, we went over so many decks today and so many cute techs, and so just so much stuff. And you guys obviously have just a plethora of knowledge and experience in the game that I think is really going to help people out once we post this thing up and see how next week goes, whether it's online or on the online ladder or article sites or whatever. I like to end every video with kind of a piece of player development stuff from just some candid information from you based on maybe how you got to this point in your playing career, what's made you better, an underrated tip that might help somebody out there who's trying to grind and get better. So, Carter, I want to start with you. I know that you've done a lot of good things in this game in a really short time, and I'd love to know kind of what helped you do it. What's been the greatest tool for you as far as improving?
Okay. So I had been playing for 2 years before I had done anything at all, and I got fed up with being bad, and I hit up Finn, and I was like, I need coaching. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And we worked 1 or 2 sessions before every event, and my game just started to improve so much from then. And here we are now, and I'm writing for his website because coaching works, and just really good for you as a player. I feel having like someone else's like a second opinion, can be really beneficial.
Yeah, I'll take this moment to also state that I got coaching from Finn before I ever played in a tournament. Because my point of view was, well, I wouldn't go to the gym without a personal trainer and not know what to do, so why would I do that in Pokemon? So Finn was really great to work with. It was the night before a League Cup, and he told me my deck was bad, and then he gave me a list, a Gardevoir list, and I went to the League Cup, and I didn't lose a game. It was a wonderful day.
That's awesome.
And that's when I was like, wow, okay, this guy seems like he knows what he's doing, and I've known him for 2 years now. And we play sometimes too, and that's always helpful. But yeah, I mean, Carter and myself, we swear by coaching. I certainly wouldn't be able to do this soon into my playing career. Have a position of, this kind of creating this kind of content. It's just been wild, and I owe it all to coaching. It has helped me understand the game and deck building on a completely different level than where I would naturally be. So it's cool that we have similar experiences, man. Keep it up. You're doing great. It's cool to watch.
Thanks,
you got it, man. Justin, how about you?
So I recommend for all players to understand the people that are around you, whether that be, mainly locally. I've become super close with a lot of my local players from Orlando, Miami, and in between. And those people have helped me to, testing on a daily basis, figuring out card lists. I don't know. This community is so great in that aspect that there's just so many people that you can talk to. There's so many ideas that can be spread around. And honestly, I don't know where I'd be without my group of friends that help me before every event.
Yeah, man. Find your group, find your tribe, play with them, learn about them, build something, see what happens, right? I mean, there's so many groups out there of good players. What I found is that players who are, just starting out are, getting better. They're better now than they were, 2 years ago, There's just such free information out there, and then there's we're all so connected, and it's so easy to play with somebody who lives in California or who lives in Florida or who lives in New York like myself. It's easy to stay connected with people who we respect and who we know are really good and who could teach us things. So that's really good. You live in a great area for the game, dude. It's been really good to see you grow, and just keep doing it. So thank you for coming on here today. So Finn, what do you got for us? You're a legend in the game, right? Tell us how do we get to that point?
Oh man, I'm not that good. I got one regionals win. I don't deserve that title.
Legend.
But well, thanks
to
you and Carter. Thanks for having me on, by the way. But the most important thing, if you want to improve, is just play Pokemon as much as you can. People tell me that they're not getting the accolades that they want from the game, and the cups aren't going so well for them, or they feel like they're getting unlucky. And I just ask them what their day looks like, and they mention things like playing Call of Duty or watching TV or eating a meal while you watch YouTube, and I'm like, that's all time that you could be using to play Pokemon. Just play more Pokemon. It's literally so simple. You just play Pokemon a lot, and if you want to improve more quickly, then coaching helps. Don't try to build your own decks. That's definitely a big one. People try to build their own decks.
Do not build your own decks. Only ever net deck.
There's so many people that are better at deck building than you if you're new. There's so many. Just listen to one of them, and if you feel like you need to make edits, get rid of that feeling. You don't need to make edits. They're better at deck building. So anyway, yeah, thanks again for what you guys said. That was super nice. Yeah, just play a lot of Pokemon.
Yeah, man. I know Carter and I appreciate it. He's done a lot more in the game than I have, but I'm doing this, and this is really cool. And I think that if I didn't have that kind of mentorship and knowledge, that would have been a lot harder to get here. So it's been awesome, dude, and we got more to go. So at the end of a video, I like to open up the floor for shout-outs. Finn, I want to let you lead it off, kind of plug your stuff, give a shout-out or two, and do your thing, man.
Yeah. So check out my website, cuttertap.com. Send me an email at cuttertap@gmail.com if you're interested in coaching. Shout out to Team CutterTap, Carter, and all the other guys. And shout out to God. I'm a big believer in God now, and it's really changed my life. I know that sounds weird, totally unrelated, but shout out to Jesus.
Dude, shout him out, man. I mean, you're making big changes, you're doing big things, and I respect it and I appreciate it. So good for you, dude. Justin, what do you got?
Shout out to you, obviously, for having me on, and shout out to the guys for joining us. Shout out to all my friends, South Florida people. I love my community. And shout out Brett Burns.
Always. All right, Carter, take us home, man. Who you got?
All right. Shout outs to you, Carl, Finn, and Justin for doing this. This is really fun. I want to plug CutterTap. We just got a new article on TurboDark up. You can hit me or Finn or any of our other members up for coaching. We're always available. Shout outs to the SoCal Pokemon scene. And shout outs to Joe.
Joe? Which Joe?
Joe Mama.
I was like, there's so many. But of course, the same Joe that everybody always shouts out. Anyway, yeah, guys, like I said in the beginning, I'm TRBarron. I do a lot of Twitch streaming. I'm really big on Twitter. And I found a nice home here at Rare Candy. And if you like what you saw today or maybe in the past and you want to support us, be sure to check us out on Patreon. All of our social media links are right down here. Alternatively, make sure you check out all these guys too on their social media. Actually, I'll be pointing that way. I got Carter's Twitter. I got Justin's Twitter. Obviously, you know about cuttertap.com to talk with Finn and Carter. But yeah, I wish you guys really good luck at Richmond next weekend. It's a little scary, right? So my advice to you is, know your deck, know your 60, play something consistent, and take it one round at a time, because things are kind of in Tom's hands, right? When a format is this undefined, you never know what you're going to play against. So pick the one that you think has the best matchups and that you know the best, and go in there and do it. And learn from what you lose to, and learn from what you win to. All we're trying to do is learn. That's how you get better at anything, right? So anyway, guys, for Carter, Justin, Finn, I'm Carl from here at Rare Candy. Thank you so much for watching. Have an awesome day.